It's always surprising to find out by talking to various business people how they hardly ever consider buying the actual property when they're starting business. Fair enough, when people starting business, they haven't got the finance to buy property, and business rolls on over the years and things get forgotten. They keep paying the rent year after year, etc. I can't recall how many times I've heard these saying. Someone's come up to me and said, look, I've been here for 30, 40 years running this business. I could have bought it over once or twice. And it's true. Let me give you a couple of examples. Before I do, firstly, let's look at the business situation. I've been involved with many business and property deals, many hundreds over the last 40 years, and seen a lot of things. Basically, a business value is basically the time you've got to run the business, as in the lease and the actual lease amount. And most importantly, the actual money it's making, the multiple it's making. So businesses sold to 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 4 to 1, the actual profit margin. So if they're making $100,000 a year, it could be $200,000 at 2 to 1 ratio, or $400,000 to 4 to 1 ratio, depending what it is. Let's give you a couple of examples. Give you a couple of stories to tell you situations where this situation has come up. Firstly, I bumped into a guy I hadn't seen for a while. Let's just call him Bob at the moment. Use his real name. And I said to him, how are you? He said, not good. I said, what do you mean? The landlord won't renew our lease. Now, a bit of background. This person's family has been running a smash repair business on the same site for 40 years. And I said to him, well, what is the situation? He said, oh, well, they wants to put in a sales car yard there. I knew the site very well. I thought to myself, well, not an expert on car sales, but the site looks a bit small for car sales. So it didn't sound right. Consequently, I said, what do you tend to do? He said, oh, well, I'm going to talk to my solicitor. I said to him, I don't think the solicitor can do too much about it. It's a lease. We haven't renewed your lease. We've got no lease there. You can't stay there. He wants to leave. It's his property. He said, well, I'll see what I can do. Months later, left the premises. And 5 years later, there's still a smash repair business there. Obviously changed the name, but soon after this person left the premises, either the owner or someone the owner knew, put a new smash repair business in there. 40 years or 30, 40 years of goodwill in a dustbin. Very important lesson. Another situation, let's look on the good side of things. Had a client, he was looking around for a new premises. They were in a shopping centre, running a fairly successful business, and the rent substantially. It was something like $5,000 a week. Ridiculous amount of rent. And I said to him, for that sort of money, with interest rates at the moment, it was about 4 or 5 years ago, you could probably afford to buy something for about $5 million. I had a property for just under $2 million, half the repayments for rent, and they own the property. So this person ended up buying the property, moved the business over there, and 4 or 5 years later, they sold the business to a national company, got the money from the business. At the moment, property is probably worth 2.5 times the original price, $4 or $5 million based on return. Now the person, because they bought the premises for the business, they're sitting on a nice little nest egg they can keep, retirement nest egg, or sell for a nice little profit down the track. That's the good side of things. Now, also when you're buying a property for your business, there are various ways you can do it. Obviously, you have to discuss this with your accountant and lawyers to make sure you get setting up it nicely. But let's tell you about a story which things weren't set up. Well, may appear right at the time, but what could happen? I knew of a business. It was run by 2 brothers for years. What's quite a successful business. So I'm not sure what happened, but for whatever reason, the property came up for sale, and obviously it was a good buy. So buying it was a good option for them. Everyone knew the premises, they're doing well, and they controlled their own destiny. What happened? They decided to buy the property in their wives' names. So they were leasing the property, their wives, which obviously recommendation from an accountant and lawyers, which sounded fair enough. But what happened afterwards made things a bit more complicated. Unfortunately, they both divorced. I can only imagine what would happen afterwards. So buying a property for your business does make a lot of sense in most situations. I have found that you can make quite a good bit of money and create a nest egg for yourself. Obviously, you sell the business for a reliable business person, you collect the rent, and the rent increases over time. If I go back to that property that I sold about 4 or 5 years ago, for example, that person would have probably paid about $500,000 over the 4 or 5 years. They stayed at the original premises they were leasing because they decided to buy their own premises. They probably gained about $2 million capital gain plus, and that'll continue to increase. Whereas the other premises gone to someone else, they're still paying rent, who decided not to buy their own premises. So I know that the situation is that when you buy a business, it's very difficult because you've got to set up costs and whatever, and things just change. Things just very busy. You don't think about buying the business and you're just happy because you're paying a rent, and it doesn't come up conversation. Look at the situation with your business. As I said before, the value in the business is the multiple, the time you're allowed to run the business. So it'd be at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years to go. So you're not guaranteed you'll be there for long term, and no one will buy it if there's no lease there. Whereas if you've got a lease, you've got something to sell. If you own the property, control your own destiny. And an opportunity, have a nice little nest egg, we decide to retire or move on. Like your comments, and support this channel by subscribing and liking this video. This is Contacetus from CST Properties.